I'm really sorry not to be able to be with you tonight. Oxford Labour Club has a special place in my political history. I reached the dizzy heights, I think, of being treasurer, although I think I also ran for secretary at some point. In fact, I made it to be the secretary of the Labour Club. I want to offer a few reflections tonight and answer some of the questions that have come in, good and tough questions. My reflection is that during the general election campaign, one of my abiding memories is of the amazing work that was done by Labour students and Labour sympathising students right around the country. I'm thinking of the canvassing that we did in Fleetwood, in the northwest of England. I'm thinking of the students at Derby University, where we had an amazing meeting. There was also a fantastic result in Oxford. Andrew Smith is going to be a great MP, and I know many of you helped him achieve his victory. It was down to his leadership, but also the followers that he recruited to make the Labour case. I think that we face a double challenge in the Labour Party. First, to recognise the scale of the defeat that we suffered, especially in southern England. Oxford bucked the trend, but the trend was significantly against us. But it wasn't only in southern England. We had a result which means that we've lost 180 seats compared to the high point of 1997. We're only going to turn that round not by looking backwards to 1997, but by looking forwards and doing two things. First of all, building a living, breathing movement that's part of community campaigning in every part of the country, sort of in the way that you've done in Oxford, but repeating that everywhere. And secondly, developing a policy agenda that is about the future, not the past, that's able to build a new coalition of support because it stands for progressive reform and the future of Britain, shaping that future by addressing the big economic issues, how we're going to build and create the jobs of the future, the big environmental issues, how we're going to live within the environmental means that were set as part of the climate change bill that I created when I was Environment Secretary, how we're going to achieve genuine political reform, where I think the Tories are going to be very unwholesome bedfellows for the Lib Dems, and also, critically, how we're going to build the strong communities that in the end are the basis of a healthy life and a decent society. Some of the questions that you've sent in address that, and I'll answer them in a moment, but I want to make a different point first. It's that we'll only build a Labour Party that has the right policy answers if we get the openness, the pluralism, the engagement that is essential in a modern political party. The days of the political party being removed from society just are gone. The days of a political party that's simply a machine separate from the movement won't work. We need to turn what became a cramping and narrow style of political leadership into a new one that is open, that encourages debate, and that celebrates the fact that across Britain we have thousands of councillors, we have thousands of party members with ideas that they want to contribute, not just to national policy, but to changing things locally. Now, some of the questions that you asked, none of them very easy, I have to say. First, from Adam Dutton, the Department of Zoology, about environmental issues, and how do we turn them from being a desirable extra to being integral to our politics. I think that's one of the biggest things I learned when I was Environment Secretary, that climate change is not an environmental issue, it's an economic issue, a cultural issue, a security issue. And I think that the requirements of the Climate Change Bill Now Act for an 80% reduction in UK emissions are an important part of that. But of course, it's also important to our foreign policy, and that's why climate change was put at the heart of the Foreign Office during my time as Foreign Secretary. There's a question here about the way in which the Labour Party works. What sort of changes? This is from Kieran Cunningham at UNIV. I think that, of course, at UNIV, Ben Jackson is a fantastic historian of the Labour movement, and it'd be worth understanding from him what he thinks the lessons of history are for Labour's current challenge. I think we have to think about strengthening our links to community locally, to trade unions, but also to wider community organisations, because I think that's going to be vital. I don't know how that will produce constitutional change, and that's not where I'd start. I would start with the sort of living, breathing movement that we need to be. One example is that we are a party which has a national policy forum, but not a national campaigning forum. And we have to think about how we become part of community campaigns rather than separate from it. Jack Evans of Corpus Christi has asked a lot of questions, including whether it's true I danced to Jimmy Osmond on the tables of the Corpus Christi beer cellar. The answer to that is no. I think it was more that people compared my haircut to Donny Osmond, so I apologise for that. But he asked some serious questions too. Let me pick one of them. he asks about decentralisation. Oh no, why don't I answer this one about whether we lost the 2010 election for lack of radicalism. I think we lost it for two reasons. We lost the mantle of being progressive, and we lost the mantle of being reformers. Progressive in the sense of standing for lower to middle income Britain, for the underdog but also for the squeezed. Reform, and that loss of the progressive mantle is on issues of political reform, even on issues of inequality, where we did a huge amount in government to arrest the growth of inequality, but also the mantle of reform, whether in respect of public services or the economy. And some of those changes do need to be radical, because the way we earn our living, the way we build communities, the way we reform our politics are going to have to be radical changes, not just incremental changes. Let me answer one more. Yeah, this is really important, from Emma King at St Anne's, and she asks about how you get more women involved in the party. My experience is that there are many women involved in the party, but they get put off the party as the party goes up the pyramid, as they go up the pyramid. And the attrition rate of really good women MPs at the last election was far too high. So I think we have to do a number of things. Some of them are structural, for example, making sure that the number of women in the shadow cabinet at least reflects the parliamentary party, so that's more or less a third. But if we don't attend to the deeper structures, for example, junior ministerial or shadow ministerial posts, councillor selections, MP selections, then we're not going to get the change that we need, which is real equal representation of women. But we've also got to change the culture. And one of the things that's important to me as a father and as a husband is that we don't ask people to choose between their profession in politics or their commitment to politics and their life as members of a family, because in the end family is more important than politics. And I think that we have to understand that the culture of the party has to be a determined one, but it can't be one that is about that is a punishing one. And I think that we have to think very hard about why we're losing so many people as they go up the political ladder. And we've got a woman leader at the moment, or acting leader at the moment, and I think that's an important moment to try and address the cultural issues as well as the structural ones. The structural changes that we made in the 90s, for example, all women shortlists, were good, but unless you change the culture, then we're not going to be able to get the long-lasting change that we need. I hope some of that answers the questions that you have got. I hope you'll visit my website, davidmiliband.net. I hope you'll organise house meetings and join in the other events, because I'm running a leadership campaign in the way I would run the party. Open, pluralist, engaged, and serious about dialogue. And I hope that this is a start and that you'll join in. Thanks very much indeed.